Well, here we are on our Canada Positive Week, and boy, am I a little less tired than after the 18-inning game with the Blue Jays. But man, oh man, it's still a tiring. I don't know if I'm fully over that. I don't know about you, but grab your coffee, grab your tea. It is the first sip here on your Wednesday morning. We are Canada Positive this week. We are telling the positive stories from our conservatives and our conservative movements happening across the country. You're going to love today's episode too this morning. I know the algorithm doesn't pick up on these positive ones. We'll talk about that as we move along through this episode. But if you can share it, if you can like it, if you can comment down below and get involved in the conversation, that's what we need to talk about. The new voices, the new representation, affordable homes, mental health courage. We've been talking about it all week. But today we're talking about taking action. What happens when words turn into work? So take note, Mark Carney and liberals who really just keep with the words, because across this country, conservatives aren't just debating policy in Ottawa. They're in the trenches with you and I, helping communities rebuild, feeding families, cleaning parks, rescuing small businesses, and protecting farmers. They're standing up for our veterans. They are making a difference and taking action rather than just putting out plans. So today's episode this morning on the first sip is about those moments that you never see on the nightly news. It's about how hope doesn't trickle down from our Parliament Hill. It grows up right from the ground, and conservatives are standing there to help. Let's go.
Welcome to Bakes on Things.
Welcome back to Bakes on Things, the first sip. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and of course, join the conversation, as I said earlier down below. Whenever a crisis hits our country, whenever a crisis hits Canada, watch who shows up first. It's not the press conference crew in Ottawa. It's the local volunteers. It's the church groups. It's the small business owners. It's the neighbors around you who still believe that community is stronger than any government. And they're right. And in those places, though, something powerful is starting to happen, especially among our conservative MPs. See, conservatives, not the logo itself, but the actual people attached to our Conservative Party federally, are rebuilding their constituencies. They're rebuilding the social fabric that years of bureaucracy from this Liberal government have completely frayed. Because conservatism, at its core, has always been about trust in people, not dependence on our politicians and our governments. It's about giving Canadians the tools, not excuses. It's about asking, what can we build together, not for you, instead of what will Ottawa give us for free, which they'll come back and try to take 5 years later through the CRA. This is where hope begins, in the hands of those actually doing work. So I want to go back to a conservative MP briefly here that we've already talked about this week, but I think he's very important as a prime example of what we're talking about in this episode. And that's Jamil Javani. Long before he ever sat in Parliament, he was in gymnasiums and community centers talking to young men who'd given up on themselves. He's doing that now again as part of government in the universities and colleges, talking to all young people. He didn't wait for government funding in either case. He started these programs with whatever he had. He matched kids with mentors. He helped them find jobs. And he brought police and parents into the same room to talk to each other instead of fight with each other. That's what hope looks like. And it's exactly what government should be helping us to do. Not with money, but with action. Not a task force, but a handshake. And now that he's in Ottawa, Jamil Javani, that is, he hasn't forgotten those roots. He's still advocating for mentorship and not dependency on our government, for opportunity and not victimhood. How many liberals do you know that have constantly played the victim, especially to Donald Trump right now? That's the kind of politics that builds citizens, the stuff that Jamil is doing. The liberals just build clients, if they can even do that. And we need to see more of what Jamil Javani is doing across this country. But it does exist. You just can't find it on mainstream media. For example, in Ontario, conservative MPPs have partnered with food banks and local farmers to make sure surplus crops don't rot in the field while families go hungry. How crazy awesome is that? We make sure we don't waste the crops. Incredible. And Dougie's not even involved in that. He's too busy hobnobbing with Mark Carney. In Saskatchewan, conservative MLAs have opened their constituency offices to become warming centers during brutal winters. That's right. Not because they were told to do this, but because that's what leadership looks like. In Alberta, conservative ministers have been rolling out rural addiction recovery facilities faster than any other province in this country. No press releases or fanfare built around it, just actual action and actual lives saved. And then if you look at Atlantic Canada, what you think is traditionally liberal, you've actually got municipal conservatives reclaiming the dying main streets of their downtowns, working with tradesmen to revive storefronts, create jobs, block by block, working with women business owners and major business owners to open their businesses in downtown. That's what the mainstream never tells you. Behind every major headline about a federal failure, there's a quiet conservative success story somewhere that's fixing that failure. But you're not going to see that on CBC or CTV. And why does this matter? Because some of you might say, well, what does this matter? This is a great positivity week. You've done a lot of positive episodes this week, Chris, but why is this mattering so much? Well, because this is what separates compassion as a country from control. The liberal philosophy will tell you if people are struggling, government will save them, and then you owe us. The conservative philosophy says if people are struggling, government should get out of the way after empowering those citizens to save themselves. And that's the key difference that I think a lot of, especially middle people who went liberal last election, forgot. When you rely on bureaucracy, you get reports, Excel spreadsheets, a lot of red on the Excel spreadsheet too, for that matter. When you rely on community, though, you get a lot of green because you get a lot of results. And that's growth. And that's what we're seeing across Canada happen in Grassroots. People solving problems faster than Ottawa can even schedule a meeting to get more red tape put on it. That is not just good politics. That's the Canadian spirit rediscovered in a different way. And we need to catalyze that, don't we, Mark? But the reality is all you're caring about is trade with countries that will never trade as much as we trade with the US and not even worrying about what the citizens are going through. And I want to talk about the invisible Canadians for a second. The volunteers, the donors, the organizers, the farmers, and the business owners, all are who Mark Carney ignores. They're quietly conservative anyway, not because of their ideology necessarily, but because of their instinct, how they build. They don't call themselves activists, they call themselves neighbors. They build with you. They do nice things for their neighbors. They shovel the snow off of someone else's driveway. They buy a hockey helmet for a kid whose parents can't afford it. They deliver meals to veterans. These are people doing things that conservatives truly believe in. They don't even realize they're acting conservative. These are the people who keep the lights of hope on when the power of politics seems to consistently go out, especially in the last decade. And in many ways, they're the reason the conservative movement still has credibility, even if they don't call themselves conservative. They're using conservative beliefs because they prove that words like freedom, responsibility, and community aren't slogans, in fact. They're a way of life. The only slogans are the things Mark Carney is using in his speeches every single day from somewhere else in the world. And yeah, there is a media blind spot to all of this on purpose. They want you to believe that conservatives are negative and angry and just get angry at liberals. There's a good reason for it. You won't see these stories, these positive highlights leading CTV News or the CBC homepage. Why? Because they destroy the media's favorite lie, which is that conservatives only care about money and not people, which couldn't be further from the truth. In fact, the people that actually describes are the people in government, the liberals. But every time a conservative MP hosts a food drive instead of a fundraiser, every time a Tory mayor fixes a pothole before actually giving themselves credit in some kind of press conference about it, Every time a provincial minister drives to a flood zone in their own pickup truck instead of flying in on a private jet for a photo op, that lie the media tells you, that lie the liberals tell you about conservatives, really collapses. Real compassion doesn't brag about it, it builds, it works on it, and it's building everywhere. They don't sit there shouting, taking credit for it. Instead, they just keep doing it so it actually grows the community. So here's the hopeful truth: the next great political revolution in Canada won't start in Ottawa, it'll start in communities that decide they're done waiting. And we're seeing that across this country. Look at what Alberta's doing. Look at where some of our communities are getting into trade and different markets and things like that. When neighbors organize to clean up a park, that's politics. When parents demand better schools, that's real politics. When farmers fight for fair trade, that's the real politics that gets things done. And guess what? It is happening, just not from our liberal government. It's happening right now from our conservative MPs, from and all of our communities, from Fort McMurray to Fredericton. Communities are rising. They're the ones saying, we can handle this because clearly we're not getting any help. That's what conservatism actually really means here. It's why you should consider voting conservative. Self government in the literal sense. The belief that Canadians don't need to be managed like children. They just need to be trusted like adults, to do the right things, and to build the economy their way. The conservative movement is a message of renewal. It is something that we need to pay very close attention to, especially post budget, when and if they bring down the government. Because when you look at this movement, when you see a Jamil Javani out mentoring youth, when you see Leslyn Lewis helping families find community again, when you see Andrew Lawton opening a new market in St. Thomas, when you see premiers and MPs rebuilding local pride, what you're really seeing is a quiet renewal, a very powerful quiet renewal, a rebirth of practical optimism in Canada. Canadians are remembering that what it feels like to solve problems is, instead of just arguing about them, we actually take action and solve them. And conservatives are showing that the best way to fight despair is with purpose. That's hope. That's hope in action. That's the antidote to liberal cynicism. So let's wrap this up this morning because I know you've got a day to get into, but we're positive here. Let's keep it positive. Today, I want you to think about this for yourselves and your communities. I want to leave you with this thought. The government doesn't make Canada strong. Canada strong, as a slogan for the Liberals, is actually inaccurate. Canadians are the ones that do it, not the government. From crisis to community, that's the journey we are on. From chaos to compassion, from apathy to action in this country. And when a movement empowers citizens to rebuild their neighborhoods, care for each other, and take pride again in what they can do instead of what the government can do for you, that's when hope stops being a slogan, like catalyze, and becomes a habit because you're taking action. That's what the new conservative generation is trying to show you. It is what the new conservative generation is proving, that faith, freedom, and community aren't museum pieces. They're tools in your toolbox to get things done and to move this country forward. So despite what the mainstream media is trying to push, to every volunteer, every small town mayor, every frontline conservative who's out there fixing what's broken while Ottawa argues, thank you. You are the reason people still believe that this country can turn itself around at some point. And that's hope. That's service. That's Canada in motion. My suggestion to the Conservatives is to make that your slogan next. Canada in motion. Let's get going. And that's why I believe the best days of this country aren't ahead because of politicians. They're ahead because of you. Thanks for watching Bakes on Things. Don't forget to like, subscribe, as I said earlier, and of course, join the conversation down below. Are you seeing this starting to happen in your communities among your conservative groups? Are there a lot of closet conservatives who aren't saying it out loud but doing conservative things? I want to hear it in the comments down below. Don't forget, we will have the last word at the end of the day today as well. Our second episode, it will continue this positive streak. But for now, for the first sip, go enjoy the rest of your coffee and your tea and have yourselves a fantastic Wednesday. And we'll see you this afternoon.